All right. Welcome in, everybody. Few announcements to start. The first announcement is that, yes, in fact, and indeed, um, my animation, my pyramid animation on hierarchy is done and edited. So that will be coming out shortly. So you can look forward to that. And yes, we are actually going to talk about unicorns. I don't know why you would think in a video about unicorns, we would not be talking about unicorns. It'd be hard to do because if you try to negate something, you also have to discuss it. So that's a good hint about why we'll say negation in and of itself is a like a bad thing, right? Like why negation is a problem because you can't actually you know remove something from the world by negating it. That's not how the world works. It might work in math, but in reality, it doesn't work at all. That's why identification against is bad. And we'll probably be touching on identification against and similar such topics. Um, and on the 24th of this month, I will be talking with Professor Rachel Fulton Brown again about manners. So you can look forward to that because that will be super exciting. Um, and what else? I have another video on how to break things down and understand sort of the world and where things go and why some of these quote scientific theses are stupid. But that is not for today. Today is all about talking about unicorns, and for that purpose, uh, oh, yes, Lazarus, I am streaming tomorrow night. Still, the pirate live streams are on. I try not to replace the pirate live streams because I rather enjoy them. I don't know if the rest of you like them, and I don't care. It's my channel. Um, to help me talk about unicorns, which are obviously a divine feminine archetype, we have Sally Joe. Welcome back, Sally Joe.
Hi.
It looks like you're looking rather conspiratorial today, Sally.
Seems like it just goes back to unicorn.
Excellent, excellent. So this is a follow-up to the Dragons and Unicorns talk that we had done earlier, and this is more obviously about the unicorn side of things because that's we'll say slightly more important in one way. The unfortunate part about this talk, as compared with the earlier talk, is that I am not, in fact, in South Dakota like I was last time. So we just have to do it this way. All right, Sally, how did you want to start this out?
I can explain why the fifth element and the last unicorn are the same movie. Can explain why toxic masculinity is derived from not being able to find the unicorn. Why the Red Bull is the toxic masculinity, but not King Hangard in the last unicorn. And yeah, I don't know. Those all sound equally, completely level. Like that makes they're all just clear as day. So yeah, yeah. What do you want to do? I was
Yeah,
really hoping the links wouldn't be crazy when I logged in and throw all of my thoughts away. But
but they did. That's okay. You're an artist. You're forgiven. So I have no excuse if I lose my mind or my memory or whatever. But you are covered because you make wonderful art all the time. Yeah, I mean, I think the last time we were sort of focusing on unicorns and dragons, pointing out things like, and Peterson doesn't talk about the unicorn really much at all. I actually asked the AI because I have an AI sort of set up for that. And Sally Joe is a fan of the Lost Unicorn movie, which is quite an interesting film. And so that contains all of the archetypal sort of symbolism that we need.
the last unicorn, not the lost.
Yes. No,
And,
no, no, no. I'm my thing is we're talking about the Lost Unicorn archetype.
yes,
And the movie is The Last Unicorn
yes.
is a nice parallel to that. See what I
Well,
did there?
I just kept getting kicked back to it. So when we were last time when we went down the rabbit hole, we ended up with the Physica and the unicorn tapestries and all this stuff. But anytime I would look on the internet, especially for unicorn stuff, it was like the last unicorn, the last unicorn, the last unicorn, the last unicorn. I'm like, okay, forget it. I'll just go with the last unicorn. But it's amazing. It's just incredibly amazing. And it's like, it's not like stupid My Little Pony is amazing. It's like, this compares to The Hobbit.
Yeah.
Like, it really actually does. And I think it's been like purposely thrown out because it had the word unicorn in it.
That's well, yeah, we've lost the unicorn, and so nobody wants to talk about the unicorn, including Jordan Peterson. I'll talk about the dragon, which is the male archetype, but not the female archetype.
Just not being taken, like, it's as much, if not more, of a hero story than The Hobbit, and it's got that absolute wondrousness of you're experiencing the hero, but not as the hero.
Right, pre-hero hero.
Well, no. You're experiencing the issues that the hero goes through, but not strictly from that perspective. Which a lot of modern fantasy books are written from almost the perspective of one person or one or two people, but at no point in the story are you trapped into a specific individual. You're watching them, you're knowing them, but you're not trapped into that. And that's why, like, The Last Unicorn isn't strictly about the unicorn and her experience. It's not strictly about the mortals and their experience. It's not strictly about the wizard. It's not even trite with the lead character or the lead villain. It's not trite at all. It takes everyone seriously, right down to the scullery cat. Like, the scullery cat and the butterflies and the birds are all taking gravity, which is like, that's the feminine. Like, to take the butterflies with a gravity. Not that you listen to exactly what a butterfly says, because the butterfly kind of just repeats lyrics in the book. Like, he repeats songs and lyrics that he's heard, and it's just like dismal. It's like listening to a toddler. The butterfly, the wonderful example of like listening to a toddler. And like, I saw a number, because I purposely put myself through watching modern reviews of The Last Unicorn, and I know what's going on in some of them. Some of them are just like women in those social science classes. They're like, and this butterfly is the toxic masculinity on display. And I'm just, oh, baby child. No, that's what it's like talking to toddlers and small children, and you wouldn't know because you're barren. So that makes
Well, and I want to give the viewers and listeners a little context. So one way to think, like, the way I'll say that the current sort of intellectual, which is really pseudo-intellectual zeitgeist, would talk about this. They say, including potentially Jonathan Peugeot, although hopefully not. They would say it's meta-symbolic, right? Because all the characters are symbolic. Like you said, the butterfly is symbolic of a child, right? But then on top of that, there's all of this symbolism about how those symbols relate to one another, right? And they might use the term meta for that, for which they should be drawn and quartered, by the way, because I'm just so tired of the misuse of that word. There's obviously a video on navigating patterns about this. It's such a problem. Like, everyone's misusing it.
So about meta masculine toxicity, or
meta masculine toxicity. Right. We might as well. So the unicorns are important, but we should kind of lay out the character archetypes here. So the character archetypes are, we have a unicorn, right, which is what it opens with, and then we have these exposition characters, right, that are also, basically setting up the story, and then they're out, right? They're just in the beginning and then they're out. And then we have the butterfly, right, who's trying to answer a question. And so you've got the unicorn asking a child to answer a question, right? And then realizing, why am I asking a child? Children don't know how to answer questions. Roughly, That's not what obviously what the unicorn says, because it's all symbolic, right? And that is the beginning of a quest. So the beginning of a quest is on the unicorn overhearing something, and then the unicorn has all these interesting properties, which I'll let you go into, Sally. But let me lay out the rest of the characters first. So along the way, on the journey, the unicorn, and the unicorn is obviously representative of innocence, right? The unicorn sort of is reminded that not everyone can see the unicorn for what it is, for its, well, dare I say, true self. Now, the unicorn's an immortal or magical creature, and so true self gets tricky, because that's if you're going with platonic forms, that would be true. Things that aren't immortal and magical would not be true, by the way. So she runs into another immortal who she gets captured. The other immortal gets captured, right? And a failed magician, right? And basically from there, so it's like act 2 of a 3-act play in this case. From there, they go to seek what happened to the last of the unicorns, right? To all the other unicorns, like where are they all? And in the process of that, they run into the Red Bull, and at least according to Bruce, that's very biblical. I don't remember the passages he was quoting because did not read.
Isaiah 34:7, and I have it on hand.
Excellent. So the Red Bull is responsible for this via orders from a king who lives in a crumbling castle and who has an adopted child, but not any real children, right? This is the very 70s, I mean, early 80s. Was it 82 the movie came out? I don't remember. Do you know when the book was written?
Yes, 1968, and the film was in 1982.
Yeah. No, it's very 1960s to early 80s. It's very, very muchly. And then what happens is, they do run into a Robin Hood character at one point, around to your point. But
Transfiguration. You got transfiguration of men, transfiguration of women, and very specially transfiguration of immortals.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of transfiguration, and there's a lot of talk about the limits of transfiguration, which nobody ever meant. Everyone's like, "Oh, I transcend, and then everything's better, and I'm more." And it's like, no, that is not the world that we live in. I don't know what you're seeing, but that ain't the way things work at all. Like, first of all, you got to give something up to transform. You better be thinking about that real carefully, right? And second, not all transformations are permanent. And so that cast of characters is the outline for how the story progresses. And I think the problem when you have like modern storytellers, where again, I'm going to hammer on this forever. They look at the Matrix and they go, what made the Matrix good was fight scenes, right? And maybe some of these philosophical things, but the cool special effects. And then you get the 2 follow-on movies, which I argue are excellent in their own right, but they have too many fight scenes and cool camera tricks, right? And if you shave them down by taking that out, not entirely, but shaved it down, those movies would be better. So in the same way that people don't know how to analyze the Matrix at all, and I may have to do a Matrix video on my own, so I might plan that at some point. People misunderstand, we'll say, this meta symbolic nature of this movie, where the symbols, the movie's about not the symbols, but how the symbols relate, as well as the nature of those symbolic representations. And again, the thesis from the first video that we did, see the link that I pasted earlier, is that we've lost the unicorn, right? Everybody's talking about dragons. Nobody's talking about unicorns. Why do we have trans people? Same reason, actually, right? This archetype is gone. We're not talking about it. And it's not even that we're not talking about it, because I think the part of the problem is when you talk about the unicorn, you destroy the unicorn. And we're so focused on this fundamentalist idea that we need to give language to everything and explain everything that we destroy it. And we're so steeped in fundamentalism that we miss it. So Sally, how do you want to recap the movie and what goes on?
So I want to talk about like the relationships between men and women, or men and the unicorn and women in the unicorn, and like their transfigurations. And then I may want to talk about um, the relationship of love and transfiguration in The Last Unicorn, and then compare and contrasting that with The Fifth Element. And so I'm just going to go right in to my spoof on toxic masculinity, because hearing somebody address it at the butterfly, and I'm like, but it actually was there in this case, and you missed you missed where it was. So King Haggard, his name is Haggard, all right? He's living in a cursed castle built by a witch. He has the Red Bull at his total beck and call. He doesn't need anything else. And his major problem in life is nothing brings him joy. Nothing. So he's dismissed all the court's gestures. He's dismissed the court's cooks. He's dismissed food and wealth and like all the trappings of it, because there's no freaking point. And he's basically a hoarder. And the only thing that he found brought him joy in life was seeing unicorns. And he experienced it once, and it made him feel young. So he had the Red Bull push them into the sea, because he keeps them on the sea foam to stare at from his tower. So like that is like just guys wanting to possess women, but they don't really want to possess women, right? They don't really want the whole life and ebb and flow and relationship. They want the part of her that's the
Women are crazy. We just want the beauty. We don't want the crazy, Sally.
part.
Have you met women?
Perfect unicorn part. So he's doing that. He's pushing that into the sea. And
Right.
when the last unicorn, at one point, to hide from the bull, gets transformed by the failed wizard into a woman. Well, she's there at his castle, and he knows, because this guy, like, the only thing is unicorns. Like, he knows right off the bat, she's a freaking unicorn. And then he notices her becoming less unicorn. Well, this is kind of effing with his plan to have all the unicorns in the sea for him. So he confronts her about that, about losing her unicornness, which is super interesting, because like there's a certain rage guys have about beauty, which good guys don't understand what I'm talking about usually, because they're not dicks. But guys that are dicks have it, and you experience it now and again. And there are guys that will be mad at you for being beautiful, also mad at you for not being beautiful. It's a whole deal. And I think it is really exemplified wonderfully with King Haggard, because when she starts to become human, and when she starts to fall in love with his adopted son, she's losing her memory of being a unicorn. It's slipping away, because you can't be a unicorn and be a real person.
Right.
And there's one point in the movie where she's like deciding to fight for her people or not. And the wizard says to Prince Lear, who's madly in love with her, like became a real person for her, like madly in love with her. And the wizard says, what is it worth to have all the unicorns in the world when you could have one more good woman? And him and Prince Lear kind of go around that. And so you've got King Haggard, who, because he can't see joy anywhere, just wants to possess these unicorns. And he very specifically doesn't hurt them. He just wants to possess them. You have Prince Lear, who became a man for this woman. He had just kind of been a layabout, and he becomes a real hero. He becomes a man for her. And then you have the wizard, who's depending on this feat of magic to become a real magician and end his little curse. And he almost doesn't want to take it, almost on the happiness of the unicorn and Prince Lear. He's like, maybe I'll just never become a real musician. Like, because that's what is his pending fate. If he doesn't do this, he doesn't really, like, he doesn't know a real magician, besides doing this. And he's kind of like neutral. He's like, well, I could give it up for you guys' happiness. Why would I cause anybody else suffering? And then Prince Lear, who became a hero to fall in love with this woman, is like, no, not all the unicorns can be sacrificed basically for his happiness, but like also
Right.
unicorn's happiness, because he knows
Right.
when she came, she had the memory. And even though she doesn't have the memory at that time, she's become completely as vulnerable as a teenage girl. Like that's how vulnerable she became, even though she was an immortal beast. And like when she first come, she was terrified of the new magic. And she talks about it briefly. Like there's a new magic this one has over men.
Right.
And I
Right.
and it's not within me to control. But because she'd always had people attracted to her for her beauty, but it's different now. And it I kind of but that's the relationship of toxic masculinity and to the beauty and the beast dynamic and dragons, and like somewhere in that is the healing. Like
Right.
it's all
Well,
there.
this movie is about restitching the world, but you'll notice, right, even in your outline, all the men are unhappy because all the unicorns are trapped.
Right.
Almost all the unicorns are trapped in the sea foam, which sits below the cursed castle, right,
And
so that the king can
that
gaze on it.
so right, Peterson, that's the chaos. And so the verse, which the movie relates to the verse in this symbolism, whether he did it consciously or unconsciously, and the unicorns shall come down with them, the bullocks and the bulls, and their land shall be besoaked with blood, their dust made fat with fatness. And this is the judgment of Edom, and Edom is the brother Esau from the twins, meaning red, which kind of is a double implication because they're a mining people and they tear stuff up, but then also it's just red as in tanned, as in ruddy, as in light under the sun. And
Right.
then the book does this so well because there's a fat village in the midst of this destruction. And it's like, well, not fat, like physically fat, but fat wealth wise.
Right.
It's oh my goodness, it's just so symbolically like good. But that's my thing. Like, if you're doing toxic masculinity right, you're doing it with enough contrast to see how masculinity can be used well and poorly. And
Yeah.
they very specific implication. Lear, the son, he kind of wants to please his father still, because at least his father saved him. He does have a love for him, and then he has a fear of being him too. And that's part of what shifts him from deciding no, I think, because he's like, am I King Lear? Do I just want another unicorn? Like he's humbled by seeing this.
Yeah.
This never save all the unicorns. Like it's
Right.
cool. And
No,
that,
you're right. You're right at the end in particular, where he's like, no, 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 you need to go back to being a unicorn as much as I love you and as much as you might love me or be interested in me or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. It's more important that you go back to being this precious thing that most people can't see.
right.
And I mean, they'll still see something beautiful. They just don't see the full beauty. And I think that's more the theme, right? Like, doesn't matter what the woman looks like on the outside, you don't see the full beauty.
Now I want to talk about the transfiguration of Molly McGrew.
Yeah, so this is where they go. So there's some interesting stuff in here I wanna just frame for people. So on their journey, when they escape from the evil witch that captures them in the beginning, that captures a unicorn and a harpy, by the way, both of which are immortals and have a form of mutual respect for one another. And there's a bunch of symbolism in that, right? You're supposed to walk away, don't run from an immortal, because then it'll see you. Right. That's true, right? Yes, yes. Right. And so what happens is they go through this area where effectively, and it's explicit, right? These people are LARPing, actually LARPing, right? Or mimicking Robin Hood. I mean, it's to the point where the wizard kind of accidentally, because he's a bit of a klutz, conjures an image of Robin Hood and Maid Marian, right, to impress them and make sure that they're sort of joking around like, we should kill you right now. You have nothing. And then they're like, no, come and have some soup. We'll share what we have. We're just poor, but we'll share what we have. And then The woman who's hanging out, it doesn't look like they're married, by the way. Interesting. She leaves with the unicorn and the magician, right? And so there's this whole motif in it. And again, this is all about all this symbolism. So you take something like an imperfect story like Robin Hood, and you improve it, right? So first of all, they're not Robin Hood. They know they're not Robin Hood. They're pretending to be Robin Hood. They're mimicking Robin Hood, but they're not Robin Hood, and they know it, and that's fine. Like, sure, you're mimicking something, you know, you're not the thing. That's probably okay in most cases, right? But then she leaves for her transformation. So effectively, there's only a handful of characters that don't go through any kind of transformation. The witch that kidnaps the harpy and the unicorn eventually, she dies. Well, that's her transformation. We don't know what happens to her. Oh no, her son dies too, right? Yeah, the son dies. She
Even
dies.
even the cat is transformed.
Right, right, right. And that's the thing. So when they talk, like when the movie critics and stuff talk about character development, man, is there character development in this
Okay.
in this whole thing. And the book is better than the movie, from what I've been told. But it this highlights the importance of the lost unicorn, right? Our society has lost the unicorn archetype as predicted by the book in 1968 and put to film in 1982, which we've been ignoring the whole time, much like Zardoz, another excellent film we've been ignoring. Um, and then all of a sudden, you end up in the situation that we're in, and you can trace pretty much all of our problems. Now, you can't say, oh, we lost the unicorn, and therefore, how did we lose the unicorn? That goes way back. See my history playlist. But you can trace a lot of these problems to this idea of losing the concept of the divine feminine archetype via the unicorn in this case.
So, can I talk about Molly McGrew now? Are we ready?
Please.
Okay. So first off, we want to touch back to the last video. A way to catch a unicorn is it comes to the lap of a virgin and blesses her life or feeds the hunter she's helping or whatever. So normally it's a young girl just into womanhood, young virgin. Well, Molly McGrew is not that. Molly McGrew looks like she's about 37, 38, maybe 40, not like old, but not like young. And in the book, she's just discussed as like haggard and covered in dust and wearing patched clothes. And she's got frizzy red hair, just exactly like what you would imagine a Molly McGrew would look like. And she's trying to be motherly and care for these vagabonds who are pretending to be Robin Hood, but they just rob people and pay off the mayor to not kick them out of their woods. And they're all kind of displaced by King Haggard. So like there is a little truth to their suffering, but also they won't do anything else. So they're just kind of stuck. And then when he conjures up Robin Hood, she kind of runs off. She's kind of tricked. She wants to be with Maid Marian, but she figures it out kind of faster. Like she comes back before the rest of the troop. And when the wizard is walking off after the unicorn has saved him from being tied up, and she sees the unicorn, immediately, but she's not happy. She says to it, now? You come now? Why would you come now? And she's weeping, and I'm weeping, because it's like, I get it immediately, and it took me a while, like, sussing out, and it's like, the appreciation of being young and beautiful and powerful in that way, if you miss that, it's just gone.
Yeah.
So Molly starts out at that point. And then, even though it's not going to help her now, like it would have helped her back then, she sees the wizard, and like the wizard and the unicorn are literally going in the wrong direction from the castle. And she's like, no, I'm coming with you. And the wizard's like, no, you're not. And she's like, well, you better ask her. And points at the unicorn. And the unicorn lets her with them. And they go, and she ends up being like help. And she ends up like, there's a whole thing in the book about you can't just touch a unicorn. The unicorn has to let you touch it. And it's a whole thing. And then when the unicorn becomes a girl, she holds the girl like the Pieta. Like she holds the girl like a little child when the unicorn becomes a girl, because that's the first day of her life. She's born, actually. It's a different creature. It's like she was born into humanity on that day. And then Molly McGrew is the mother, which she kind of always was. She talks about when she's at the scullery of King Haggard, she's feeding his men and she is talking to the cat. She has these conversations with the cat. And she says, I'm glad King Haggard takes his meals alone, because anyone I feed, I come to love. And it's just really good. But at the very end of the book, after the unicorn has left, and after spring is returned, the wizard looks up at Molly McGrew and says, she's prettier than the lady ever was.
Mm.
Meaning the unicorn as a person.
Right.
Which is just, it's just really like, that's the transformation Molly goes through, not running from things, not being part of the, like, just, it's hard to explain it. I'm going to go to the cat transformation so I can quit being sad. So cat,
well, let me just step in and add a little bit of context. So yeah, I mean, this story, particularly with Molly McGrew, she's the classic sort of Irish, tough as nails, right, but caring sort of character, which is an archetypal character, which would have been back then, for sure, because it's very, very common. There's a lot of Irish people in the United States, and it's more than in Ireland, that's for sure. And so you're trying to draw this thread together with her, and the way to rehabilitate the loss of the unicorn. So one is to treat it like a precious thing again, like a baby, right? Even though it's a grown woman. And the other is, Molly McGrew is the one driving the wizard to step up and do what he can, not what is expedient, not what is unconfident, right? Because the wizard's very unconfident because he's a screwball.
She helps Prince Lear too, because when Prince is utterly in love with the unicorn, like the way young men get, like, just stupid, and he's going out and he's killing all these beasts and bringing them to the unicorn, and he's like, here's the head of a dragon, here's the back of an ogre, like, and the unicorn, when she was a unicorn, she fought these creatures, so kind of like, but then also she reveres them in this different way, the way she revered the harpy. So the fact that it's killing them for her to prove his love is like, she's like, ew, like, mostly, like, which that happens, like, that is so classic. And so Molly is in the kitchen trying to do work, and Prince Lear just wants to be helpful. He desperately wants to be helpful, and she can tell because she's just older and she's just a more mature woman. And so she, oh dear, just come talk to me and peel these potatoes, it'll just help. And he's peeling them and he's never peeled potatoes and he's cutting his finger. And she's like, oh, well, you do it away from you with potatoes. I don't know what else you've been cutting, but with potatoes. And then she's explaining to him, it's like, well, why don't you just write this down? Why don't you talk? And she doesn't really want him to even fall in love with her. She just can't stand to see him sad because she's doomed, because she knows, but she also just can't let the poor boy that's in the castle trapped with King Haggard be miserable. Like, even though not her quest, not her thing, she's there now, she's fed him now, she can't let him be miserable, because in spite not being a mother, in spite missing all of that.
Yeah, and I think that's part of what's driving the narrative, is this thing that I've talked about many, many times before, which is based on some wonderful artwork by an artist everybody should be familiar with because she's here on screen, Sally Joe. Women point. That's what they do, right? The man can't really make the platform for the woman unless the woman is pointing at something, right? I mean, the man will make random things because That's what we do.
little cat. So in the book, the cat is also a ginger, which I think is great because in the book, the cat is also a ginger. And then he's talking to the woman who's a ginger, which there's just a dynamic there of they have this instant relationship. And then she says to him, "Are you King Haggard's cat?" And like she's been talking to this cat, and then one day after the unicorn leaves, he starts talking back to her. And she's like, "Are you talking because you were by the unicorn?" And he's like, "No, but maybe I'm talking because I know I can talk because I was by the unicorn." So he won't admit to the unicorn making him talk. And then
Right.
he kind of wants the unicorn to pet him, but he won't let her. But he kind of wants to, which you've seen cats do that game.
Yeah, cats do that all the time. Yeah.
"You love to be petted. You're letting me pet you right now. Why won't you let Thea pet you?" And he's like, "Well, I knew she was a unicorn right away because cats always know things. And I know if I let her pet me, I'll be hers forever. And what cat could let that happen?" Like, basically, and she's like, "Well, but then you're not anybody's." He's like, "That's true." And then like they go through this whole thing, and then at the very, very end, right before the wizard realizes Molly's beautiful, the cat touches the unicorn.
Mm.
Unicorn's feet. So not even letting her pet him as a person, he touches her feet on purpose at the very end. It's just, and so even the ornery little cat transfer, and like this cat is just as much of a, like all the problems you'd imagine with a cat talking. He'll tell her everything she wants to know, but never straight answers. Just like riddles, just garbage. Just like, "Well, of course I know where the passage is." "Well, can you tell me?" "No, I'm a cat." Like,
Yeah. Well, and the other interesting thing too is, in this movie, it'll be very hard probably for people to see. The hierarchy is exemplified all over the place because there's a separate set of rules for immortals that doesn't apply to to regular things, right? Non-immortals, humans, right? And there's separate sets of rules for animals like butterflies and cats that doesn't apply, right? And so you get a sense for, but they all interact and it's all fine.
so
So that's
if
the meta symbolism, and I hate that term.
favorite,
That's how symbolism works. If you're not drawing things together and integrating them using your symbolism, I don't know what you're doing, but I wish you'd stop and maybe do something easy.
and it's this exemplification of relationship. So one of the things, the way you can put in gross scientific terms what is going on with the unicorns and how they affect things is there's like a radiation. They radiate virtue, purity, glory, majesty. They radiate it everywhere. And so because King Haggard has pushed them into sea, there's entire lands that have no spring because the thing that they radiate, and like even if they had a spring, it would be like a spring of winter. Like it's hard to explain because you can still eat, right? But it's not satisfying. Like you can still see the flowers bloom, but it's not it, it's like the inability, like it's like a loss of radiation. Like it's like having a fireplace if there was either heat or light gone. Like if heat was gone or light was gone, it could still be a fireplace, but it's just wrong and it's almost worse for its wrongness.
Mhm.
And that's like the unicorn thing is really interesting because when you're separating it out from the world, that's when it's broken and when it's fiction. And that's kind of like beauty too. When you separate it out and it's beauty for beauty's sake, and this is part of like the three-part nature of women and the transformation of women. Like if you're trying to catch the unicorn that women are, like when people are like, "You're trying to date the unicorn." If you're trying to catch the unicorn that women are, well, then you got a unicorn and you don't got a woman. And it's probably plastic and Botox and toxic chemicals
Right.
and fry your brain, and it's gonna own you. And like
Right.
that little kitty cat had of touching a pure unicorn. Because it's not that unicorns are bad, but it's so strong that it's like that kind of pure, like it's like having a fireplace if there was either heat or light gone. Like if heat was gone or light was gone, it could still be a fireplace, but it's just wrong and it's almost worse for its wrongness. And unveiled beauty in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong constitution owns you, and it transforms. And like but it all has its place. So there's this point where there's these three elderly guards, guys in their like, and they can't retire because of the curse. Also, they just don't have anything else anymore. So what would they do? They crave familiarity. But when they're around the unicorn, they don't know why, but they're like happy and like super, like when she's a human disguised. And one of them says to her one day, "If you wished it, lady, we would become young again for you." And she just kind of like does what you should do as a young woman getting on by a 7-year-old, and she looks at them and leaves the room. Um, which, like, yep, right answer. But when she turns back into a unicorn, she wishes it, and they all become in their 20s. And then that helps Prince Lear, who lost his castle, lost everything. The men who raised him are in their 20s. What a gift.
Right. Right.
Like,
Well, there's all these gifts going on, and it's interesting how, we'll say, emblematic it is of the core of a lot of the problems you're seeing with male-female relationships. Like, because I do wanna, we can't focus on only the movie, right? I wanna bring in this idea that, so not only is the Red Bull rounding up the unicorns, right, and hiding them all in the seas, so that now they just become mere objects of beauty. In fact, they're transformed. They're not even unicorns. They're now actually sea foam. Right, they're technically now they're sea foam, except for the last one, and she's just this beautiful blue-eyed blonde, because of
purple.
course. Well, whatever. Purple for the unicorn, yeah.
I'm afraid, Mark, in the hierarchy of beautiful eyes, purple eyes is the top. I have to tell you.
Well, look, I can attest, because yeah, no, I'm not going to get into that story. Those little contact inserts were quite the thing back in the day when they first came up, and I was definitely enchanted by that. So the sort of larger picture here is that when you have that the unicorns hidden, but their beauty is exposed as sea foam, that's what causes the decrepit world. That's what causes it, right? Because in essence, it's been called out and it's been named by King Hagrid. And the thing is that Haggard is representative of the generation that made the mistake, we'll say, right? That actually takes spring. Now, what is spring? Spring, because in the unicorn forest, it's eternal spring, right? Yeah, spring is one of the cycles that you need to go to, right? It's the renewal cycle. So all of that has been round up and flattened into sea foam, right? And represented as mere beauty that causes happiness, rather than an interaction with the renewal cycle of birth,
And
right?
that's
That's effectively what's happened here.
the difference between house and home. And almost everyone, even the people who have homes, are homeless because got the McGrew lady, their home is nothing. You've got this little village where they're wealthy, but their home is still nothing because they won't have children because they're worried about curses. You've even got like the old witch who just shares the experience of old age. She's like just old age, unintegrated into anything else. And even the castle is a wicked, evil castle made by a woman and not men who mocks people at like the castle has gargoyles that mock people at night and like
Yeah.
is of the unicorn's beauty and like a bunch of these problems. But like, yeah, and I think we did a good job in the first video of talking about like when you maintain a space and you protect the precious thing, that's how you're blessed by unicorns. Because really, like you said, because I reviewed our video, like women in the wild aren't what they could be. The McGrew lady in the wild, she was motherly, she was careful, but nobody would have called her beautiful then. But then when she gets real care, she becomes like another thing. Like she's already pretty okay, but she becomes like another level of like, oh wow. Because like when the wizard becomes a real wizard and can make her a horse and she doesn't have to walk barefoot through the forest, and she doesn't even have a house yet. She just has a capable caretaker suddenly.
Right. Well, and she makes the castle, which is a house, into a home with her care, which is expressed by her making meals and feeding people. And then King Lear's anxiety is alleviated by what I call Zen sweeping, right? By peeling potatoes and talking it through. And she's not even necessarily agreeing with what he's saying. It's not about agreement because she probably understands, no, this, you should not be in love with this creature because it's not a it's an affectation. And right. And so the movie demonstrates the re-enchantment of the world. It's one care at a time. And the problem that we've run into is we've tried to answer this stupid question, which is ultimately stupid, although I will admit that the Matt Walsh treatment did it perfectly. What is a woman? Well, the problem is, unlike men who are mostly retarded, I mean, we're strong, but we're really stupid. At the end of the day, very few mechanisms to us. You can kind of describe an og. It's not a big problem. Me og, me smash, me build. That's it. It's not that hard, right? But with women, it's not it's not only that you can't describe them, but in describing them, you place them in an impossible box and you destroy their potential to be more than they are because you've placed them in the box. This is the problem of fundamentalism. This is the problem of propositional tyranny. This is the problem of the age of gnosis, where we want the information conveyed as words instead of getting the information conveyed as, I don't know, driving to South Dakota and hanging out in the studio with Sally Joe.
Way better to talk about the transfiguration of unicorn than to talk directly about the transfiguration of a girl, a mother, and a woman, because that's too tender and too direct. And the transfiguration of the unicorn is so fantastic. So the unicorn, like, she gets the news from the butterfly and gets too curious. Like, she gets curious like a child, and she's wise beyond her years comparatively to other creatures, but also she's totally innocent because, like, she's in the forest, she stays in her forest. The only thing she's really responsible for is like keeping her bunnies from getting hunted. And Spring just shows up because she's there, and she enjoys looking in her pool at herself. So totally young. And when she discusses with the wizard after their first little conflict, she has no sorrow for, or no, she has no regret for the old. She can have sorrow, and she knows that regret and sorrow aren't the same thing. So that's mature, sort of, but she has no regret. She cannot. And then when she becomes the woman, it's more terrifying than death because she can feel things dying all around her. She can feel this new power that she doesn't know how to control because she's never had it before, which is to be a woman. And she knows it's there, but she doesn't know what to do with it. And mostly she like can't talk to guys at all because she doesn't know what to do with them. She doesn't understand their new attraction to her because they always liked her because she was beautiful, but it's new. It's a new attraction, and it's like she just doesn't know what to, like, and there's no, like, for the unicorn especially, there's no fruit to come of it because there wouldn't be because she's a unicorn. And so it's just, there's that. But then when she does fall in love with Prince Lear and she kind of forgets her immortality, she forgets her greater goals, but she becomes enriched because she loves something other than herself. I'm not in that way. Like, she liked other unicorns, but even the unicorns, they don't care for each other the way we do, because as far as they're concerned, if another unicorn dies, that's okay. There's other unicorns and there's still a unicorn, and like they're still part of like the cosmic everything, and they don't live together, and they rarely have another unicorn except if they have need of it. Unlike, it's a different relationship to reality. And then suddenly she's a woman and she cares for this young man, and he teaches her to sing. Like he starts, like that's what she does that causes her to fall in love with him, because she's having the dreams as a person from her memories as a unicorn. And as a unicorn, they weren't terrifying because she had no regrets. But as a woman, as a real woman, the harpy eating the old witch who wanted her to eat her, by the way, is terrifying as a woman. And that's like growing up. Like things that were just here nor there become, you understand their impact, and you're having to deal with that impact differently. And the man helps her with that, as men can do. Difficult to get them to. But like the man is supporting her and helping her with her new physical frailty, and like she develops this love for him, and that's the reason the unicorn can't be pushed into the sea, because when it's just her, she's almost getting pushed into the sea, and Prince Lear runs into the Red Bull, which is like, that's the play. Like, if you wonder what you can do for women as a guy, get in between other guys and women sometimes.
Yes.
Actually, a thing you can do, because there will always be a guy who's being a Red Bull somewhere.
Right. Right.
Concept, hence the picture. But once he was down, once he was injured by that bull, she was like, no, I'm a unicorn. And she brings in like this cosmic power. She pushes the Red Bull into the sea and just raises him from the dead, because she's a unicorn and she can. But she'd already raised him from the dead. Like, and he says that in the book, I think. He's like, you raised me from the dead twice. Can't I do anything for you? And that he can't do anything for her as a unicorn, because she's already raised him from the dead twice. He can't do anything for her. And the wizard basically has to convince him to run his own kingdom.
Right. Well, and the movie really, and the book probably as well, do a really great job of letting you understand the change in perspective, right? And the fact that when that perspective is new, you need help to integrate it. It has to be integrated. And the change in perspective may be exemplified as a physical transformation from the body of a unicorn into the body of a woman. But actually, that's just symbolically representing any girl growing up. And so the implication there is that all of these characters need to mature. And of course, I have a live stream on maturity, right? And so that is what a lot of the theme in here is, the maturity theme of all the characters and how that interrelates from masculine to feminine.
That was the thread I lost. Yeah, no, the transfiguration of the unicorn and her expressions of horror and wonder were very accurate. It's actually one of the best depictions I've ever come across, because there was no bitterness really, because it's not about bitterness, which that's the disservice the feminism bullshit does, is it throws in this deep-seated resentment and bitterness to the point that it overshadows all other things, because while that may be there, it's not the summary. So like when you switch from being like a pretty little girl like 4 and 5 and everyone's enamored with you and gives you a cookie and happy, to suddenly one day that's over and you're a woman and you really don't know what to do with it, and as soon as that happens, an amount of women will give you scorn and an amount of men are danger. And it's just like one day you're freaking stacking blocks practically, and then one day someone's like, you can't be wearing that, and you're like, what? And usually it's like you've just grown and wearing the exact same thing you were before, but now it's suddenly become indecent because you've changed. Yeah.
Right.
Bras and how like suddenly new article of clothing you've never wore before. But like that's like that transformation. Like the unicorn went from being a horse to full-fledged woman. And that's childhood to like silly in games playing, and then suddenly, and you don't know what to do with it. And God, you hope you have decent people around you to throw a coat over you, because you don't know what you're doing. And that's a lot of like the absolute animosity I see these girls getting on TikTok and stuff, and I'm like, they are 3 days old. That
Yep.
woman is 3 days old, and because they weren't that before. So
Right.
like, even you want to hold a 16-year-old accountable for she should know this in her 16 years. Okay, so she's got 16 whole freaking years on Earth. Okay, sure, but she might have like 2 weeks of being a woman,
Right. Right.
and you can't be expected to be as culpable. Like, yeah, maybe like TikTok, Instagram, all of that should just be completely illegal because yeah, they're throwing around their power. But like, I tell you what, man, like that's not how that works. Because like, I don't think they can, like, even if they wanted to, the ramification of those actions is way beyond their ability. And I'm not trying to completely let them off the hook. I'm just trying to get people to understand it's not them in a vacuum that's creating that problem.
Right.
Didn't make Instagram. There's no 16-year-old girl that made Instagram a thing.
Right. Well, and this is the question of the lost maturity through lost formation. We're not forming things, and because we flatten the world, the first thing people flatten is time. And so 16 years is 16 years, right? So the 16 years from 0 to 16 and 16 years from 16 to 32, it's pretty much the same, right, Sally? I mean, nothing different at all, right? It's all right. And then people treat everything that way because they've reduced everything down. This is that fundamentalism again. They've reduced everything down to measurement. It's all measurement. It's nothing to do with quality. And this movie in particular is all about quality. In fact, the thing about archetypes and symbolism has nothing to do with quantity. Like 5 symbols aren't bigger than 2, or like in fact, one symbol can hold the whole world together. I wonder what that is. But that it's all quality when with symbols, and so you can't use math on them. You can't use mathematical systems on them. That's why I just saw a Galileo quote earlier today on Twitter, and I was just like, it's
So
anti-Christian. It's not all measure. You can't use math on everything. In fact, you can't use math on anything important. So don't do that.
any like the unicorns never talk to each other. The harpy never talked to another harpy. The prince never talked to another prince. There's no, I don't think there's any dialogue where one archetype talks to the same
Yeah.
of its. Wow, that's so rich. That's
Yeah.
just, word is distinct in the whole thing. That's crazy.
Right. And that's part of the key is that this does in, via negativa, via its absence, prove to some extent that formation's not happening. And because formation's not happening and this flattening occurs, the world is destroyed. The world is missing the cyclical nature of regeneration, of rebirth, of being born. It's not there. And that, it's antinatalism. Well, yes, of course, because we've lost the archetype of the unicorn entirely. Like it's, or we've tried to reduce it down to some set of propositions, or like, what is a woman? Because Sally, what's a woman? Go ahead. You're one. You can tell us all about yourself. Just go ahead.
Well, I mean, the drag queen answer is fake nails and like skanky skirts. And so why can't they be one? And that's the real tragedy, is that definition ever was a totality of woman. Because I tell you what, if there was any real understanding of what a woman was, there wouldn't be one of these jokers trying to pretend to be one, because it's something that gets torn inside out, be that physically or mentally, just to be well as itself.
Right. Well, and we see we have a deep problem of expression. So right now you'll hear people saying, well, of course trans people or whatever are mentally ill, right? And as though the mental illness precedes the transness. But actually, I think the odds of that are 0. It's the other way around. When you're a man or you're a woman and you're trying to be something else, that will make you insane because it won't work. Like at the end of the day, it's not going to work.
I've tried to explain to guys a couple of times, women don't do what they want, and especially mothers, but not even, and they're like, but if you're doing it, then you want to do it. And I'm like, no, it's way much more like a compulsion. And like, this is easy to show in terms of cleaning, because just because a woman likes a clean house does not mean she wants to clean. Just because a woman wants things to be clean doesn't mean it's actually the same. It's not the same as when you say, like, I want a two-door car. That's not the same as what a woman is like, I want this house to be clean. It's not like, okay, I've got a want, I'm going to go out and get the want. It's more like, if this house isn't clean, I feel worthless, and I know everyone will judge me based on this house, and I might die if this house. And like, same with like exclusion, inclusion. It's not that they necessarily want that one old lady that never shuts up about knitting to be part of the group. They might not want her, or like that one person that talks about the one that got away, or just like annoying people. They don't necessarily want to include them, but also they don't want them to be excluded, because if we can exclude them because they're raspy and annoying, we might get excluded, and that might be the end of our town eventually if we just leave them to die alone. So I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna take them biscuits. I'm gonna see them. I'm gonna clean their house. I'm gonna make sure they're not living in filth. They might not want to. Not in the way, not in the like, I want a cookie kind of way.
Right.
They're compelled in this different way. And like, that's easier and more understandable with kids, but it's way past kids. It's way past kids. And like, it's the Molly, like, that just cuts to it, is like, I come to care for everyone I feed. And also
Right.
she just cares for the people she's around, like whether she or not. And that's,
Right.
I mean, I think that's one of the reasons women were so often completely excluded from the idea of military aged male, because there was this understanding that women are kind of just going to care for whoever's around, and there wasn't going to be seen as treachery if there was a group of captain women that ended up cooking all the meals for the enemy camp because like they were there and they're doing women's stuff. That would not have been seen as in many
right. Well, they prioritize, but they prioritize relationship, and they prioritize relationship because they have to, right?
Yeah.
And one of the good things about the movie that makes it, we'll say, really prescient for today's time is that it does exemplify relationship and proper relationship. More important than relationship, proper relationship of these different interactions with the characters.
Yes, and this is something, there was an old sci-fi, I think it was old Doctor Who I watched once. And in that, there was like a 13 or 14-year-old girl that gets caught up. And the woman who's with Doctor Who sees that she's scared, and she just holds her and comforts her and shows her this motherly love, even though she's older, but because she's a girl. And that happens in The Last Unicorn. And women aren't doing that for each other. That's fun. And women are like, that would be seen as juvenile and demeaning in the culture right now. And you know, Karens might not have to be if there was some of that going on, because that kind of tenderness is actually very normal for women. Like, that is the way feminine is. But when you're allowing that, you have to put on this hard, nasty shell. And you've got these wearing these like freaking Kevlar, I'll do it myselfness, and they're exhausted and they're tired and they're mean.
Yeah, well, that's what makes them mean. Trying to be individuals when you prioritize relationship, individualism is death. It's absolute death, and it destroys the world. And the problem with individualism, and this is very hard for people to understand. There's a few different factors going on. The first factor is psychological projection. So I might want somebody to be an individual because I want to believe that I can also be an individual, right? So that has nothing to do with them. That's pure psychological, but I see that all the time. But the other aspect is I might want them to be an individual so that they're more like me and then I'm in a bigger tribe. That's another reason, right? Since it's two, right? And then it's worse, right? Because I might want them to be an individual because then I can control them.
One more.
Go
You
ahead.
might want them to be an individual because you don't want to be responsible for their welfare.
Right, right. And that flattens the world down to zero relationships, right? To individualism in all cases, freedom to be an individual, all that nonsense, that's all garbage that is part of destroying the world. Absolutely, 100%. Right? You're not supposed to be alone in the world at all. You are supposed to be connected to yourself, others, and nature. And with individualism, the other side effect of that is that you don't recognize things like conviction because in individualism, everything's driven from your intent through your free will. And therefore, if it's not working, it's got to be something outside of you's fault. Well, I got news for you. Self fulfilling prophecy is real. And your ability to compel yourself, as Jordan Peterson says, to just go to the gym every day is limited, irrespective of the world and this Rousseauian idea that everything that's not me is what the problem is, and I'd be fine in a pure state of nature nonsense, right? But everybody's thought, pretty much, that you're going to hear talking on the internet is actually saying exactly that.
So, do I explain the fifth element link to the last unicorn?
Please, I cannot wait.
Okay. So I realized this morning that the fifth element is basically just a lesser form of the last unicorn. It really is.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So you have your Prince Lear, which in this version is a failed soldier already. So he's already decided not to be a hero. So you got that going on. And then he is totally enamored by the womanly beauty of the fifth element, which is not a human, by the way. So it's like the supernatural being embodying the beauty, like the virtue out in the form of a woman because of that context, but it's not strictly that. Unlike Prince Lear, because he's already decided not to be a hero, he's only being a hero for her. So he doesn't transform into a real hero. He just becomes a real man, which is kind of good, kind of questionable. He also has a strifed relationship with his mother, as Prince Lear did with with the King Haggard. So I thought that was interesting. But the transformative power of the fifth element, in the end, when they're activating all the elements, the way he gets her to be able to do it is recognizing the connection of love and the possibility of caring for another more than yourself. Because she didn't care for the world anymore, because she'd just learned too much. So she had a severe case of more information, did not help. So he had to bring her back to something outside of herself once the information had corrupted her.
Right.
That was love. But like, it's not as good as the last unicorn, because in the last unicorn, the hero acts heroically in spite of himself and actually gets a bigger thing in a way, which you have to read the book for that part. But in the fifth element, it is the same like nexus, and they do a good job of not being totally engrossed in a particular individual. They go back and forth for characters, and like the fifth element, like a lot like the unicorn, has two caretakers that show up right away, the priests, and like there's a bunch of parallels. You could draw a bunch of parallels.
Gotcha. Yeah, I didn't see that before, but yeah.
Even Zorg, you could draw a parallel, because he action. Action is his thing that makes him feel alive. When he throws the cup on the floor and lets all the little robots come get it, and he's willing to make a deal with darkness at his own suffering, much like King Haggard. And he just wants the action and the power. So for him, his unicorn is action. But it's still, and he wants to possess it just completely. Like he wants to be the guy who's talking to the darkness that has the power. And it's like, yeah, that's a King Lear. Like it's just or King Haggard, the prince.
Haggard, yeah, Prince
Which,
Lear.
because Haggard is the hoarder and Lear is the man who looks.
Right.
If you take it literally, it actually means a thing. Like the young man who's looking, and he was looking at King Haggard, and then he's looking at the unicorn, instantly transformed.
Right, and that is the transformative power here is the transformative power of attention. I have a video on Kairos and how it's here now. That's a live stream. That is also about attention, right?
Oh,
And it's the attention or the change in attention that causes all the transformations for all the characters.
about unicorns. So the judgment that you get from it being exposed to something pure and virtuous is what's healing.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Emblem of the unicorn healing, and like the unit, like you get touched by a thing that's greater, more beautiful, more in order than yourself, and people shudder from it.
Right.
Like in the book, and like the cat is like the purity of it causes you to shudder, and it should, and like I think about it like the glory of God with the burning bush, and it turns the hair white. It's like a pure oxygen can kill you. It's a like that. Like if you're struggling to understand the metaphysics of it, you can think of it like radiation. Like you need it to live. Also, the sun will burn you to pieces. Like
Right. Well, and that's yeah, that's super important is that the emanation from the higher thing, whether it be an immortal, a unicorn, right, or something else, and that's the thing. See, that's early on, right? When you've got the harpy and the unicorn, right, and it's like either one, does something to you. One will eat you, because the harpy actually eats people, and the unicorn will not. The unicorn brings rebirth, right? And so all that stacked symbolism, and it's all about relationship and attention, and it's attention that helps to mediate your relationship, as Jonathan Majot says. The world is attention. Yeah, it at levels you don't understand.
so, like the unicorn is putting this attention on beauty, but the witch, it's mommy something. What is the last part?
I don't remember the.
But the witch whose name starts with mommy, which is just as gross as it should be. Um, her manipulation of attention is a theater in which, in the last act, she portrays old age itself. And as you look at her, you feel yourself age to be old and decrepit. And it's so strong that even the unicorn feels her fur fall out and become haggard, though that is not a state a unicorn can reach at all. And then when it's done, the old witch just laughs and she's like, I've done it. I've put myself in your mind forever.
Yeah,
And
it's
that's
Fortuna, mommy Fortuna. That's right. Thank you, Lazarus. Yeah.
um and I mean, that's why she's perfectly fine with the harpy eating her, because she's so pleased with herself for at any time held captive a harpy that no
Right.
other. And like, oh, she's a good character. Like, she's just a good, terrible character. Like, yeah, but also it's like that is the proper nastiness that should be attributed to some women. Like,
Right.
they want you to feel old. Like, like
Well,
even
because that's their loss of power, right? A woman's power is in her beauty to some extent, and that's when she's at her peak. And then once it peaks, it's all over, and her life's not over yet. And so, yeah, she capturing immortality itself, because right, the harpy and the unicorn refers to them as immortals, right? So she's capturing immortality, and she's like, well, I captured immortality for a time, so I'm ready to die because I've got both ends of the immortality, the beautiful part and the harpy, which is the ugly part.
really appreciate that balance in the movie, because when you have mommy Fortuna complemented with King Haggard,
Yeah.
and they're collecting things.
Right. No, the
Oh,
whole thing is so yeah, there's no way they knew what they were doing, right? A lot of this is
I
just automatic.
about that. Mr. Beagle was on an artist's retreat, and it came to him all at once. And an artist named Marcel Rodriguez gave him a painting of a white, he's a Spaniard, of a white unicorn fighting red bulls. Which
Oh.
undoubtedly, the white unicorn fighting red bulls was derived from like the Spanish and their obsession with bullfights and the Isaiah verse together. Like that's where that painting comes from. And so like if you and this and that's such a wonderful exemplar of how art influence, like visual arts influence you in ways that you don't know. And you should be careful to curate your environment, because you know what isn't going to help you is like the Coca-Cola bear. And what will help you are emblems of virtue and glory and history beyond your understanding.
Like the virtue cards, Sally, which we have for sale on tapestries on the
I'm
shop at marcowisdom.org website. Yeah.
got no virtue cards, but still carefully curated their environment. I wouldn't begrudge them that.
Yeah, and I think so just to step out hopefully of the movie, uh, you know, the way that this interacts with us is the movie sort of exemplifies the fact that you can't reduce symbolism to propositions. And trying to do so will just break your brain. And there's no reason to do that because you have to flatten things to reduce them to propositions. What you need to do is watch the movie and feel, intuit what's going on in terms of relations, right? And not try to reduce relations to relata, because that makes me think like the death penalty needs to be broadened. I'm really not a fan of that particular move. I find it to be fundamentally evil. We're not reducing relationship to some new fancy version, Latinized or Greekized version of a word. We're not doing that. That's not going to happen. That's what got us here, effectively, is this idea that math can map the world, that we can map the world with propositions. That no, it's in the interactions. And the thing that's been destroyed for us, particularly by this flat, ugly internet garbage thing, which I grew up on, by the way, so, is relationship. The type of relationship that you can have, yeah, it's not zero. It's better than playing Mario Kart by yourself, right? So yeah, the upgrade from flat screen by yourself, it seems like a big upgrade, the internet. Absolutely. And it is a big upgrade, right? There's way more things going on, but it's still flat, and it's still really flat, and it's still not enough. That's why on the first video, I had to drive out there. We had to do the video in person, right? And we did. And it's a wonderful video. If you haven't seen it, check it out. This one will make more sense. So in the world, what this teaches you is that, hopefully intuitively, is that renewal is gone because the feminine unicorn archetype is not understood. Now, to understand something, you must not study it in a book. In fact, my argument will be, and continues to be, if you studied it in a book, there's one thing I know: you didn't understand it. Because to understand something, to really know it in any capacity, is to participate with it. That's it. That's the only, there's one route. John Vervaeke may use participatory knowledge and have three other types. He's wrong about that. See the knowledge engine model on navigating patterns, right? You have to participate in order to have knowledge of anything at all. And this whole movie and book is about participation and how the different layers interact and what happens when you squish them down. You take the unicorn, you put it in a human body. She feels horrible, like she's dying, and was like, no, let the Red Bull kill me. Which, by the way, the Red Bull was never going to do. The Red Bull never kills the unicorns. Mutual respect at the same level of the hierarchy, kind of, but also not his task, and also probably can't. And it's when the unicorn realizes, this bull cannot kill me, that everybody is freed.
Well, and it's blind, but I would like to say you can't buy seasons at Target.
Yes, that's perfect.
Because there's a lot
That's the quote of the hour for sure.
buy seasons at Target in spite the advertising, in spite the unicorns being pushed into the sea there. It's not gonna work. So I know it's very disappointing. So good luck.
It will be disappointing to some. Lazarus, I don't think I can do another book club ever again. But oh God. Yeah, book clubs are hard. And nobody shows up anyway. So it's kind of pointless. That's the flat interaction, right? Oh, everybody will watch a book club, but nobody actually wants to come on screen and do a book club, right? And they won't do one in person either, which is worse. The intuition here, the knowledge that you got from interacting with this should be more around this proper relationship with the things in your life, both greater and lesser than you. Because there's a lot of, like, the unicorn in the beginning understands, oh, the butterfly is lesser than me. And the butterfly needs to be treated differently from how I might treat it. Oh, and then it's like, oh, the humans need to be treated differently because some of them think I'm a mare and some of them can see me for what I am. Right. And so it's not like the humans get universal treatment because they're humans. They don't either. Right. Because that maps to the real world. The real world has more variation in it than people are accounting for when they're stuck on the propositional tyranny and say, this is this. It's like, well, no.
And we're approaching the close of the year and fall, and that's, instead of thinking about spring, it actually is highly relevant to think about memento mori. And we've lost death in plastic too. And it's very tragic because the true memento mori and the hallowed evening of the darkest nights, like I keep explaining this to my son over and over, like, mommy's into memento mori, not this plastic Halloween. And I would much rather actually put out a picture of my father and a bowl of his favorite candy, because that's way more unnerving than any of these plastic skeletons. Really, really, really. And there could be a grace in that too. And we've lost it just like we lost the grace in the unicorn. We've lost that real remember death. I have a whole memento mori video because I've gotten, like, I'm mature enough that I am not simply appalled. I would like to actually fix it now.
That makes sense. Yeah, and I think well, one of the things that people are missing is this interaction with the cyclical. And the unicorn provides that by being a stable contrast. And we're stuck in what I call middle out thinking, right?
That's that's a wonderful line from the book. The wizard says to Molly at the end, he's like, well, the unicorn is the only thing that was real in this story. We have to move on to the next one.
Right. Right. Well, and also, I mean, I think people aren't, because, and I have a video on middle out thinking, obviously. People aren't accounting for the fact that the world progresses from immaturity to maturity and then to death, right? And that's why you squeeze out birth, because of course you do. Everybody's doing this crazy middle out thinking thing, and they're not accounting for you know, what the world really is, because the world consists of a hell of a lot of change. And that change is the thing we need to learn to manage, not things like, how do you manage a relationship? Relationships change over time, right? Like, certainly when you're married, it should be different from when you were dating. And then people get upset and they're like, I want the excitement of the dating back. And it's like, no, that's because you've mismanaged your marriage.
Well, and that's the same problem people are having with their fortunes, their habitat, their communities.
Right.
Is it all change and it will not, like, when a town is being built, you have to operate differently than when a town is established. And when a town is waning, you have to operate differently.
Right.
we're in that as a country where we're trying to clasp onto these things we had at the peak of industrialism. And actually, what would be good now is to like close down some stuff and shift things around and just be like, nope, this
Right.
now. Don't reach back to the nostalgia to have an abundance that could never have been sustained while losing the vitality we do have currently that is available. There's wonderful, vitally wonderful things right now that could sustain you. They're not the same as what your parents had. They're not going to be. And that's hard. But it doesn't mean you have to throw everything else out either. Like throwing is retarded.
Right. Well, and there's the people in the world, and there's a lot of them, unfortunately. Dr. Vervaeke's one of them, who says, we can't go back. And it's like, oh, no. I don't know what history you're reading, but boy, can we go back. We've done that a lot. Like, that's the argument both for and ironically against the Dark Ages is, we definitely went back. Why? Because we didn't need what Rome had. And it's not like we lost all of the tech, but we did lose cement, guys. Like, I mean, they had underwater setting cement. It was gone for 1,200 years or something. We definitely lost stuff. Like, there's no question. The Antikythera machine, we lost stuff, right? But that's not what's important. What's important is the world had to move on because the conditions had changed. And you can blame the plague, you can blame the barbarians, you can do whatever you want. But not having stable masculine and feminine archetypes means that you're stuck in middle out thinking where you want all things to last forever. Well, how did my parents handle their retirement? It's like, but that's not going to work for you because you're a generation later, right?
And everybody owns a 5-bedroom house, and everybody has this, and has a company job with a solid 401k. I'm like, sorry, bro. Like, it doesn't mean you can't have good things. In some ways, like, you have better air conditioning. You probably have better nutrition. You have better connection to stuff they never dreamed of, but you don't get that.
You got the internet. And the real problem is you also don't want to go the other way and say, oh, no, everything's a side hustle. Everything's consulting. Everything's temporary. It's like, no, that's not better. That's just pure rebellion. And a lot of people can't tell the difference between pure rebellion and, we'll say, a healthy relationship with the cyclicality of the universe.
Do a download of what. So I looked up submission again because we're always going through that circle. One of the progenitor words to submission was to come inside. And I'm like, well, shit, I'm screwed because like coming inside is not a strong point of my people.
Right.
But the reason I bring that up is the outlaws in the last unicorn won't come inside the town that's available. They won't come inside King Hagrid's kingdom. And if you're having a struggle understanding what Mark means by submission, you got to consider it in those terms of like, if you won't come inside the structure, you can't get the benefit from the structure. And if you do come inside the structure, you probably got to take your hat off.
Right. And the critique is, no, the structure should change to accommodate me. And I'm like, well, A, good luck with that. Let me know how it works out for you, because I kind of already know. And B, no, it really doesn't. It's bigger than you. And when you aggravate it, the appropriate response is for it to like make sure you get nothing.
Not all people need to come in all places or deal with all things. Like my lot, which are like derived to people who are like, -40, worth it. Like, probably not going to do New England stuff. Probably would be unreasonable for them to put together a mill. That's just probably not in their constitution. It doesn't mean they can't be valuable to society. It doesn't mean they can't do a different thing. It's like these holdouts about the alternative dress code with the crazy metal in their faces and the blue hair and the advertising their toxic nature. Probably can't end up on the school board and be functional for that long. There's probably a whole list of things where it would seem very appropriate. They probably can serve coffee. They probably can build their tattoo parlor. There's probably stuff that is, it's just not going to be everything. Because guess what? Not everything for anyone else either.
Right. Well, and that's the problem with, let's say, the modern definition of freedom. I gotta highlight this. Lazarus for the win here. Who are you, Lazarus? By the way, you should come on the Discord server. Vervaeke is the occultist. PVK is the cultist. Peugeot is an artist, but they kind of all get viewed as something else. Yeah, well, especially when they're together, which they should get viewed as something else when they're together. But yeah, that is really prescient. I wish I had thought of that. Now I'm angry at you. I'm angry at Sally too, so it's fine. I'm angry at a lot of people.
For the day, I can go do something else.
No, I mean, the interesting thing is how, at least for me, is how well we don't understand the feminine archetype as unicorn just explains a whole bunch of what we're seeing automatically, assuming you can think at that level, and maybe most people can't, and that's perfectly fine. But it's really important for people to understand that these ways of looking at the world, especially we'll say symbolically, although you gotta be really careful with that because symbolism isn't arbitrary, like they will help you because they destroy and eliminate combinatorial explosiveness and allow you to be at ease, even though there's a war in the Middle East. Because like, when is there not a war in the Middle East? Even though Russia, the great evil from the Cold War, do you guys remember the Cold War? Everyone's tweeting as though the Cold War never happened lately because of World War II consensus, right? But like, oh, they're back. Oh no, right? And it's like, oh my goodness, this is not the way to understand the world, guys.
I read this old letter. I think it was from it was from some Civil War general to his wife, or one of the founding fathers to his wife, or something. But she's talking about the war to him, and she says to him, I cannot get stick pins. And how are we to make the toddler's clothes if I cannot get stick pins? Which those are like extra long V's for people who have never sewed, which if you're sewing by hand is pretty essential. But because of the disruption in shipping, they could not get metal pins, so they could not hand sew clothes for the kids, and the kids were basically wearing flour sacks because actually that would probably have been before flour sacks, but you get the idea. And that was how it affected the home. And that is more the way the average person is affected by war. Like one day you can't get cantaloupe. And like there's a few people that are affected by carnage, but like more people are affected by like, we can't get tuberculosis shots. And like it should be okay if we stay out of the rust. Like it's a moderate discomfort that can become serious, but it's right on the edge. And then the other thing was, so it took like 3 years for you to explain the pointing hands people thing to me. Did it take the same amount of time for me to explain that it was actually relevant that the unicorn is being dismissed?
I look, don't go over this traumatic event stuff, this PTSD that I have, trying to explain to you like the world's simplest freaking diagram, like actually the simplest thing anyone could ever draw in the history of the universe, and why it took like an inordinately long time to get you to just do that.
Years ago, I brought up the unicorn, and you're like, whatever. I'm like, I was
Wasn't relevant then.
Really? And
No, it really wasn't. No, I mean, I think part of this, you know, think of this what you will. My messages are curated, and they follow the zeitgeist. So I ain't dumping everything I know at every given moment. I'm really holding back. Think of all the things I'm holding back right now that because it's not time, because people don't have the attention, hasn't quite moved. We've got our Kairos is here, right, which is in the live stream, on the live streams, right? But it takes a while, A, for everybody to get on board, and B, for the things to turn the way they need to turn so that you can talk about the next thing, right? But at least we're adjusting in the right direction now, I'll say. Like the orientation has improved considerably, even though everyone's getting it wrong about what actually happened and all that. That's all completely wrong. But at least a bunch of people who before were moderates and fence sitters are now starting to see evil in the world, although they haven't quite got there yet to understand not only is it evil in the world, but it was always evil and you were always supporting evil and you need to stop. But we'll get there. But because we don't have these archetypes, like when you're just talking about the dragon all the time, right? It's like, oh, well, that's just a dragon. That's why that person killed somebody on a bus or whatever it is. Like, whatever, right? And it's like, no, 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 no. There's unicorns too, and unicorns and dragons can fight, and neither can win. Basically, is one way to think about it. And that's actually really important because there is a contrast between the two, and they're very separate. And they're separate for a reason, because if you confuse those things, you can't see. So now if you think about that, you go, wait a minute. So you can't understand or see both uh, the divine feminine without the unicorn archetype and the dragon archetype. So you couldn't have just a unicorn archetype either. You'd have a different set of problems, basically, or a different set of manifestations, right? But oh, what that means is that you can't tell the difference between pure good action and not pure good action, or bad action, or evil, right? And so when people see, because I'm still seeing it on Twitter, right? People are going like, oh my goodness, these people I've known since I was young are celebrating death. And, they know me, but now all of a sudden they're calling me a Nazi. And it's like, but they've been doing that for 15 years and everyone's been telling you, but you didn't see it. Why? Because you didn't have the contrast to see. For some of them just are dumb. Like, a lot of people are dumb. I don't care what your IQ is. I don't care how long you went to college. Like, a lot of people are dumb and they just can't see certain things. And we all have deficits, right? Without that contrast, though, they didn't see this before. That behavior in those people hasn't changed in 15 years. And now all of a sudden they can see it. Well, that should tell you something about how the world works.
The people showing up in black block aren't evil. Like, I don't need to know anything else. They said it was called black and block.
Right.
That, like, it's not
anti anything. Identification against is a hint. Self-reference, that's a hint. These are bad things in all cases. Like, you cannot maintain them.
White go through, it's black block.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, just contrast it. Yeah. Right. Right. And the number of people that just can't see, like, you can't explain to them things like it's not cancel culture to take somebody who lies publicly when their job is to be public, right, and fire them. That's incompetence and manipulation, right? That's different from firing somebody for something that they posted on Facebook to their friends and family. That's not the same thing. And we're still struggling with that. People calling everything cancel culture. And I warned about this actually maybe a year ago now, maybe a little bit less, on Twitter. I was like, no, this is not all cancel culture. Getting fired is not you being canceled. Mostly getting fired is you being incompetent. And sometimes it's you screwing up, because we all screw up. And sometimes it has nothing to do with you, right? But it's not, as long as it's not something that we'll say is not connected to your job. If you're getting fired for something that's not connected to your job, you might be getting canceled.
I hope that bringing up the unicorn can help people understand the relish and wonder in making, like, basically like enchanting your own forest. And I talked a little bit about the little different home movements like cottagecore and dopamine core. I still hold to that. Those look silly, those look trite, but it is some of those wondrous things. And everybody kind of understands it with childhood, but actually adults do that too. Like, the idea to decorate a child's room and the things that they love, like, don't take that lightly, and like treat that with reverence, and do it for yourself too, because you actually are somebody's child.
Right.
And
right.
Also, because of the transformative nature of life, you might be walking around people who are only a day old. And I know for sure, when you lose people and when people are born and when tragedy strikes and you reassess your world, you might be right beside somebody who's only a day old.
Right. That's a really good point. Yeah. Yeah. Maturity is not universal, and it's not linked to number of years on planet. And again, without this contrast, we've been trying to see without contrast for decades now. And it's really not serving us very well. And when the contrast that you see is, oh my goodness, being on a live stream is so much more enriching than playing Mario Kart by myself. When that's your contrast, you're living in a very flat world.
All kinds of options to be good. You could be a 70-year-old guard with a simple wish. You could be a failed mother, like who doesn't own shoes. You can be a young man who's never done anything and has to learn it all from the beginning and be taught by the scullery maid when you're a prince. You could even be an ornery ginger cat.
Right.
And like there's plenty of places. It's not one thing to
Right.
decide.
And that's the process of maturity, because, and Peterson talks about this, like, why tell people they're okay the way they are? You know, that's not true, right? Because no matter where you are, no matter where you are, you could always do the one thing that we like to encourage here, which is to be better. Why would you do that? The world needs you. What does the world need from you? The world needs you to be better. That's it. It's that simple. All right, Sally, I think we're in wrap up mode here. Do you want to wrap it up any better, or what do you want to do?
That's it. The world needs you.
The world needs you, and the world needs you to be better. And the thing about being better is that if you make yourself better, which you can do, I can't do anything about Israel, whatever's going on there, and I can't do anything about Ukraine, and I can't even do anything about the damn elections. Like I can't even, do anything about who the mayor is or whatever, right? But one thing I can do is I can be better. And that is enough. And Lazarus has my favorite thing you've said over the years that helped the most is the perfect is the enemy of the better, right? Which is even worse than being the enemy of the good. Exactly. Thank you, Lazarus, for reminding me about that. Yeah, the perfect is the enemy of the better. Obama got it wrong, but then again, he's probably did it deliberately for various reasons. But yeah, that is the key. The key is you do and pay attention to the things that you have the most control over. And the things you have the most control over are the things closest to you physically in the real world. They're not even the video game. Look, I really, WoW, I wasn't so much of a World of Warcraft guy, but I really liked Dark Ages of Camelot. That was a lot of fun. Right. But not a lot of control there. It's somebody else's game. They built it, not me. Bad rules, whatever. Right. But you have a lot of control over not playing that game and instead like building something. I've got a bunch of lumber in the yard now. They delivered it today. I'm going to build something. Right. And that makes me better. Like just the interaction with poorly building a little platform so that I can have a silly live water feed in my outdoor oasis is going to make me better. And there's always the clean your room, right? And you can always go past clean your room by being better with people around you. And this movie is all about being better with people around you. Those people make you better. There's an emanation from the unicorn that's happening right now at all times that not only gives you eyes to see, but gives you the strength to become a hero. So that's what you need to do. There's no real hero's journey, but there is a unicorn. And once you understand that, you can be so much better than you are now. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Sally, for making the time, because I know you're busy with the small child, and as annoying as he might be, we still have to take care of him, I guess, for a little while until we send him off into the world on his own. I mean, he's going to be 7. Like, just call it there. Just like he'll be fine. Just send him out. He'll be. He can take the dog or something. The dog will keep him okay. But thanks, guys. Thanks for engaging. Like, subscribe, all that happy stuff. I've got my animation coming. I'm probably going to put it out on the weekend. And then I got another video already prepared. And maybe I'll do some more recording tomorrow. And then, of course, a live stream tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Feel free to jump in on the live chat and tell your friends. Make everybody watch all my stuff. Sally, thanks again. Any parting words?
Welcome to the Apocalypse. We'll be doing it again tomorrow.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Be better. Watch me tomorrow.